What have you done to us?
Wow. I mean, wow. This episode had me on the edge the entire time, especially when we start to get a better understanding of these characters in their situation. Welcome back. Today we are here to break down episode 2 of HBO's Taz, which was titled Family Statements. In this incredibly tense episode, we find out more about what happened to Billy and why Robbie is doing what he's doing. We watch as Maeve makes a good decision and almost goes bad, which had my heart pounding, and my jaw was on the ground the entire time during the dinner scene when we find out why Ethan is facing 15 years in prison. We've got one hell of an episode to discuss and break down. Full spoilers ahead. We open with the task force looking for anything they can find in the woods that can help them find Sam. Meanwhile, this is cut between Cliff and Robbie as Robbie puts Sam to bed, almost mirroring the opening scene from episode 1 of Robbie putting his own son Wyatt to bed, as this homicide case has now become a missing person case as well. It's here we're introduced to a new character by the name of Jason who's awoken by a phone call. We see this giant tattoo on his back of the Dark Hearts, which we know is the same motorcycle gang that was mentioned in episode 1. The call Jason receives is about the death of Warren, Derek, and Joanne and Sam's disappearance. Now, his lady Erin asks him if he knows who did it, and he tells her it's probably the same crew that's been hitting them recently. Now, as someone that likes to pay attention to characters' reactions during pivotal moments, Erin's response here immediately caught my eye. The look she gives Jason when he takes the call was very suspicious to me. Now, of course, she's in a relationship with the head of a gang, so a natural reaction would be to worry when you have these type of phone calls so early in the morning. But what if Erin was anticipating this very call? What if she's the mysterious MZ Robbie's connect? We don't know yet if she knows Maeve, or if she might have known Billy, Robbie's deceased brother. More on that a little bit later. Now, while it's a bold theory, I'm keeping a very close eye on Erin. She could just simply be worried, or could be actively working to sabotage her boyfriend's entire business, perhaps for reasons unknown. We'll have to wait to see how this unfolds. Now, back at Robbie's house, he hears his kids and Maeve are now up. His immediate reaction is to ensure that no one finds Sam in his room. As Robbie attempts to play cool, try not to show any emotion from the weight of last night's events or the fact that he's currently holding a kid hostage. He even agrees to join his daughter later in the week for a father and daughter dance, a almost jarring moment of domestic normalcy amidst the chaos going on. Now, as Maeve drops off the kids at school, Robbie stays home lying about being sick, one of the many lies we see him tell throughout this episode. Now, this downtime allows him to message MZ, his connect, needing to report what happened about the night before about the hit. Meanwhile, we see Cliff is panicking, as he tells Robbie they had no idea a kid was supposed to be there, as he's clearly haunted by the faces of the people that were murdered and the very people he killed. Now, this answers the question I had last week: have these guys ever killed before? And based off Cliff's raw reaction, it's clear they haven't. This is a new traumatic territory for both of these characters. Now, Robbie, being the more grounded between the two, tries to comfort Cliff by reminding him that in all their years that they've known each other, he's always found a way out. Now, Robbie believes there's always a reason for things to happen, but this isn't working for Cliff this time, as Peaches, their friend, is now dead. As Robbie looks at Cliff and tells him,
"Then we gotta make one. We gotta make a fucking reason."
Which to me is a dark promise that solidifies a deeper plunge into their mistake. Now, outside, Robbie and Cliff open the trunk to see what was in the bag that they took from Warren. Now, unfortunately for them, there's no money inside, but instead they find pounds of wrapped, uncut fentanyl. As we see Robbie texting MZ, wrong package. Now we watch as little Sam comes out of the house, letting Robbie know that he's hungry. Now Robbie sends Cliff into town to get some test strips to confirm the drugs are pure, as their new plan is to sell these drugs, and later in the episode, Cliff does confirm that the fentanyl is indeed pure, setting them up for a dangerous new path. Now, back inside, Robbie makes Sam some pancakes. Now, this scene here to me just highlights how much trouble Robbie's found himself in. Not only has Sam seen both Cliff and Robbie's faces, he's now been inside Robbie's home, and Robbie even tells him his real name. Now, we get a moment where Sam says he wished that he could talk to animals, particularly he wants to talk to deers to warn them not to cross the street because they get hit by cars and die. Now, could this be some possible foreshadowing, a hint at something tragically happening to Sam? Perhaps he gets hit by a car at some point this season. I know it's a dark thought, but worth noting. Now, speaking of Robbie lying, Sam asks Robbie how long he'll be staying with them. Now, Robbie decides at this point to lie as he makes up a story about Sam's grandmother being sick and that being the reason why he has to stay with them for a couple days. Now, Sam's persistent. He wants to know how Robbie knows his parents, as Robbie tells him that his brother, his dead brother Billy, used to work with Sam's father before Sam was even born. This is a significant detail because later we find out that Robbie was actually telling the truth for one of the first times in this episode about Billy knowing Sam's dad and that they used to work together way back when. There's clearly more to this story that's revealed much later. Now, like last week, where we cut between Tom and Robbie's story to highlight the differences and the similarities, this episode truly excels in showcasing how both Robbie and Tom switch between their jobs and their roles as fathers. One moment we watch Robbie is dealing with a panicking Cliff and stashing deadly drugs, only to be making pancakes for Sam moments later. Tom, meanwhile, is immersed in a harrowing homicide missing persons case, but also has to juggle spending time with his own family. I'm really appreciating these dual perspectives of our main characters. To me, it emphasizes a core thematic element of the show. These are men, many of them fathers, operating in vastly different worlds, yet bound by their responsibilities of family and circumstances. As their paths continue to cross, the tension and the emotional stakes only grow higher. Now back at Jason's house, we see he has kids of his own, further reinforcing this idea of family men operating within dangerous circles. Now he's gathered some members of his gang to his house demanding answers about the other dead body found at his friend's place, who we know to be Peaches. But more importantly, he wants to know whoever made the hit knew about the shipment. Now, one of the gang members by the name of Shane mentions how Sam's most likely dead, which clearly pisses Jason off, as he tells them to call a meeting to bring everyone in for later that evening. Again, paying attention to characters' faces, the character here, Shane, might be another candidate for the mole inside the Dark Hearts. He had a look of concern to me when Jason mentioned how the people knew about the shipment, and his remark about Sam potentially being dead felt a little too dismissive. Almost like he was trying to divert attention from them going to look for Sam. Now, Shane does something later in this episode that felt even more suspicious. Meanwhile, Tom and Anthony interview Keeley, Peach's fiance, and her father. Last week, Peaches mentioned how he only had just met Keeley, and her raw honesty in this conversation confirms it. She doesn't know any of Peach's friends, and she was clueless about who he was with the night that he died. Now, Tom informs her and her father that Peaches was a part of a home invasion, and this wasn't his first time. Now, this news upsets Keeley, but also upsets her father because he knew that Peaches wasn't good for her daughter. You can see how upset that Keeley is in this moment because she felt that Peaches was her soulmate, but she didn't know this other side of him. As Tom and Anthony then press on the disappearance of Sam, this really sends Keeley over and her emotions just says it all. Now, Keeley has them leave, and to me, again, this scene perfectly encapsulates one of the show's core themes so far. Everyone has sides to them that others don't know about. Keeley, a man of her dreams, was a criminal. Tom being an ex-priest, we have family man Robbie being a criminal. But I also want to talk about how this scene further highlights the domino effect of Robbie's decision to ignore Cliff's warning about the robbery, which is obviously impacting everyone, including these innocent lives of Keeley and her father that we see later in the episode. Now we cut to Tom and Anthony in his car, and this is where we get some more insight about Tom's complex past. First, we learn that his daughter Sarah is coming into town, a nice callback to the family photo we saw back in episode 1. Then Tom tells Anthony what led him to join the FBI. He's been working with the FBI since 2003, but he was helping them before that back when he was a priest. Now Tom connects the dots, explaining how he got involved with the FBI through their crisis intervention team as part of the mass casualty events. Now, thinking back to the scene with Keeley, he wasn't aggressive with her, he even seemed to sympathize with her. To me, he understood what it felt like to have someone you thought you knew do something unbelievable, and grappling with that shocking disconnect. Now, as Tom explains, he got involved to answer the question that people during these moments would have, and that is, why did God allow this to happen? Now, Anthony, in turn, shares a bit of his own backstory, revealing that he grew up a Catholic, attending church every Sunday for 18 years. To me, this shared history with the church and religion is a fascinating connection that grounds these two. Will Tom ever ever have to answer that fundamental question for Anthony, especially given the grim reality of their line of work. Now, I also took notice of how much Anthony has learned about Tom in this scene. I say that because, again, not only does the Dark Hearts have a mole in their crew, but it appears that the FBI does as well. Now, the emotional weight throughout this episode continues as we check in with Emily, meeting with what appears to be some type of school counselor. This scene is a quiet but powerful exploration of showing how hidden burdens young people have to carry. Now, Emily reveals her concern about her father's drinking. She's noticed the cup that he used for iced tea back in the day is now used to disguise his heavy alcohol, making her believe he's trying to hide it from her. She really wants to confront her dad about his drinking, but with Ethan's sentencing going on, she holds back, fearing it could only add more stress to his plate. Now, the family statement for Ethan is coming up, and Emily is still torn. She fears that not making a statement means abandoning her brother, yet she also admits that the thought of Ethan getting out scares her even more. Now, in this scene, we also hear more about Ethan's struggles with mental health over the years, even with treatment. This conversation is incredibly important because it sets the stage for a powerful and emotionally charged family dinner scene for later. Again, speaking to Emily in this scene, her eternal conflict highlights the devastating ripple effect of Ethan's actions on his entire family. Now, back at the headquarters, the task force is holding a status meeting and we get some critical updates. They've identified 12 homes with ring cams and that could provide leads for a vehicle. We also learn more about Sam's unfortunate circumstances. For a while, he was living with his grandmother because his parents were deemed unfit. He only ended back with his parents after his grandmother moved into a living facility and his parents managed to pass a series of drug tests. As the show often hints, everything happens for a reason. Now, Lizzie, who often seems a bit unsynced with the team, actually asks a pretty important question.
No, I don't understand why you take the kid at all.
I think you're following the wrong trail here.
Lizzie might be onto something big, and I have a feeling ignoring her insights will come back into play in the task force at some point in this season. Now, Anthony provides a deeper look into the Dark Hearts. Jason, their leader, was handpicked by Perry Girazzo, a major player in the Mother Club, one of the 12 national leaders overseeing all the gang organizations. Now, Perry mentored Jason from a young age, even taking out the previous leader to assure Jason's ascent. Now, under Jason's leadership, the Dark Hearts have thrived, becoming the second largest fentanyl distributor. We also get a clearer picture of the city's power dynamics. The Dominicans, led by Freddy, control the city, while the Dark Hearts dominate the rural areas. Anthony points out that the home invasions just don't make sense for such a well-oiled machine. Tom agrees, suggesting whoever's involved must have help from the inside, deep inside, probably an informant. Now, to me, this definitely ties into my theory that I mentioned last week that MZ possibly being law enforcement or now a key member of the Dark Hearts. Anthony, however, rightfully casts doubts on the task force fighting this mole before the Dark Hearts do, warning they could lose their only good lead. Now, speaking of Perry, we finally meet him as he makes a very intimidating visit to Jason. The Mother Club recently had a meeting and their top priorities are clear. Find the leak and locate Sam immediately. Now, Perry wastes no time in expressing his disappointment, questioning Jason's leadership, and reminding him that all the cleaning up Perry's done for him doesn't come easy. There's definitely some tension between these two as Perry grabs Jason's face, furious that all this chaos is making him look weak. Now, Jason, desperate to regain control, explains their plan to track down whoever stole their fentanyl. It's a very rare sale, so if Robbie and Cliff try to move it, it'll be easy to trace the money back to them. And here's where things get really interesting. Jason reveals he's aware of the task force that's been set up, and even more, he talks about how Tom is leading them and he's not too concerned with Tom. To me, Jason remarks about Tom and not being concerned with him. That to me confirms that there is a mole within the task force potentially. He knows too much, especially that Tom is the leader, so my burning question is, who is the mole inside the task force? Is it Lizzie? To me, she seems the obvious candidate because she doesn't seem to fit into this group like the others, but something is too obvious about that choice. She might be a red herring. Now we have Anthony, who's my number one contender, but there's a little bit of a curveball in that, right? He and Tom are forming a bond, and he's been also asking a lot of questions about Tom's past and how he became an FBI agent. Is he genuinely curious, or is he gathering intel to pass along to the Dark Hearts? Could it be someone else boss we least expect. I really hope that there's no one in the task force because I like this dynamic in these characters. But if there is one, who do you think it is? Could it be Aaliyah, Lizzie, Anthony, or someone else? Now, going back to the scene between Perry and Jason, their dynamic continues to show the exploration of the complex relationship between fathers and sons. Now, Perry isn't his biological father, but again, the idea of him being his mentor and just pairing that with someone like Tom and Ethan, or Robbie and Wyatt, and now again, you have Jason and Perry. These relationships are clearly central to the show's narrative. Now, back with Tom, we get a major clue to what happened to Billy that really gives us one of the biggest reasons to why Robbie is doing what he's doing with robbing the houses and taking the money from the Dark Hearts. Now, it's here we're introduced to a new character by the name of Agent Joe Easley, who's an expert on local gang operations, as he meets with Tom and, notably, Anthony. This presence of Anthony, once again to me, just kind of plays on him being around people, getting sensitive information. It only adds more weight to my theory of him being the potential mole. Now, Easley tells them a story about a rule violation within the Dark Hearts gang. Jason, in a private meeting, brutally beat up a gang member for hours so severely that his brains had to be mopped up off the floor. And that gang member's name was Billy. Yes, Ronnie's recently deceased brother and Maeve's father, Billy. Now, Maeve herself told the detective in an interview that she confirmed that she knew that Jason was involved. This is a huge reveal because Jason brutally killing Billy, to me, that directly explains why Robbie is primarily targeting the Dark Hearts homes. It's a calculated, vengeful strike for his brother's murder. Now, let's further explore this rule violation. Could Billy have been romantically involved with Jason's girlfriend or wife or whoever she is, Erin, and again, who I think could potentially be MZ? Again, if Billy slept with the boss's girl, Erin, that would definitely lead to him being killed by the head of the gang. Now, could this rule violation have been simply that Billy just wanted out of this lifestyle? And like most gangs, you don't leave without consequences, or you don't ever leave. Whatever the violation was, it doesn't matter because, again, this is to me what led to Robbie doing what he's doing now. Now, come to think about it, this also clarifies Derek's statements in last week's episode where he said he recognized Robbie's voice. It makes perfect sense now. Robbie was connected to the Dark Hearts through Billy. This connection also raises another possibility. Did Derek play a part into Billy's death? If so, it could explain Robbie's eagerness to hit Derek's house and why Robbie was the one to personally shoot and kill Derek. Man, I tell you, the layers of revenge runs deep in this show. While the truth about Billy emerges, we get more insight into Maeve's life. Now, at work, she talks about her recently bad date as her co-worker friend offers her a place to stay due to her problems with her uncle. Now, in this moment, there's a brief scene where a phone is put in lost and found, and that detail will come back later in the episode. Now, back with Robbie, he receives a message from MZ about meeting later that evening. But first, he has to deal with Maeve. He spins another lie to why Sam's staying, telling Maeve that his mother is sick. This is what, the third or fourth time that Robbie's lied in this episode? It's really crazy to watch how easily and convincing he can lie. Robbie really has a calm demeanor and really wears it well as a mask. He's hiding deep-seated emotions and pain, finding it easier to lie than to show raw vulnerability. However, at least one of his lies in this episode finally catch up to him. Now, after his bath, Sam asks Maeve if she could call his mom to ask for a toy. He then gives her his mother's full name, a name that doesn't match anything that Robbie told her. More importantly, it's a name Maeve recognizes due to her father and her uncle's history. A quick Google search of Derek's name quickly reveals articles detailing Sam's disappearance and his parents' death. Meanwhile, Tom continues to display his dismissive side. He receives a phone call from a psychic claiming to know Sam's whereabouts, but again, he pays this person no mind, echoing his earlier disregard of Liz's instincts. Throughout this episode, you can tell Tom's mind is occupied with his upcoming meeting with his daughters. Now here we get this really great shot of the Dark Hearts riding to their gathering. Now I have to point out Shane's individual solo shot in this scene. This solo shot to me just kind of goes further to me thinking that Shane's gonna be a very important character to the story and not just a throwaway character. Now, at the Dark Hearts meeting, Perry informs Jason about a morning meeting with Freddy. Perry wants to keep the stolen drugs under lock and key, hoping their robbers will make a mistake. Now, it's a little bit later in the scene, but we see Perry having his eyes on Shane, which makes me wonder, is Shane being the rat too obvious? Could he be a red herring? Sometimes the answers are right in front of us, but it feels almost planted. Now, Jason tells Perry that only Shane and Breaker knew about the drugs traveling the night before. Now, Breaker is the guy we met earlier in Jay's kitchen, making him another strong mole candidate. Now, also in this scene, there is a quick, brief interaction between Breaker and Shane arguing that could be important. Maybe they're working together. Now, we catch up to Robbie and Cliff at the bar awaiting MZ. Now, Cliff is still understandably freaking out about Sam, whose picture and name are now plastered all over the news. Now, Robbie continues to try to calm down Cliff as he tells him they'll figure something out to do with the kid once they sell the drugs. Now, Cliff's anxiety about Sam, to me, is really growing in this episode, which makes me wonder, will he take matters into his own hands to get rid of Sam, or will he stick with Robbie's plan? Now, MZ texts Robbie canceling their meeting because his boss is keeping him late. The question, again, who is MZ and who is his boss? Is this Shane? Is it someone else entirely? Let me know, who do you all think MZ is? Now, going back to episode 1, where Robbie was talking about maybe going online to date a female and getting back into the dating game, we see Robbie making eyes with a woman at the bar. Now, will this woman be relevant to the story? We'll have to find out in further weeks. Now, at Tom, Sarah arrives with her newborn as they sit down with Matt, their lawyer, to discuss the family statement. Now, Ethan has pleaded guilty to third-degree murder, as we also learn that Emily has been the only one to see him since the murder. Emily speaks up and says that she's thinking about making a statement, which is surprising to her older sister Sarah, and she wants to know what exactly does Emily plan to say.
Telling the judge a little bit about how we grew up, Ethan and I, before we were adopted by Mom and Dad.
She also believes her brother won't be getting the help that he needs inside the prison. Now, Sarah isn't on the same page as Emily on making this statement because it could affect Ethan's sentencing from getting 5 years versus 15. Now, it's here we get the big moment. The reason we hadn't seen or met the mother, Tom's wife, is because Ethan murdered her. Sarah makes a distinct point by saying that Emily's brother did it, separating her from being called her brother.
Don't say it like that.
Say it like
Don't
what?
do that. He had a psychiatric disorder, and he was off his meds
Yeah,
because of
he threw Mom
COVID.
down the stairs. He broke her neck.
Sarah goes on further by asking her father how would he feel if Ethan returned home after 5 years and is living in his house again after killing her mother, his wife. Now, Emily speaks up to say that it was her mother too, in which Sarah makes a face as to say technically not your biological mother, as Emily walks out of the room. Wow. Could you imagine being in this situation? As messed up as it may sound, I can kind of understand Sarah's feelings about having these adopted siblings who I'm sure she loved, and based on the family photo in episode 1, she was raised with them kids. So the idea of a non-biological child coming in and killing your mom, that's a tough pill to swallow. And of course, thinking about Emily in this scene, thinking about the fact that this family brought you and your brother in, while yes, having mental health issues, still he murdered your mom. Now, I do wonder if the race of Emily and Ethan will play into the situation, because if you all do not know, the actress who plays Emily is Dominican. Now, this revelation plays back into another central theme that we've seen so far these 2 episodes. We see how these teenagers and kids are in broken homes destroyed by losing someone, or particularly losing one of their parents. We see Sam, who's lost both his mom and his dad. We have Maeve, who lost her father, and we have yet to meet her mother or to find out if her mother's even in the picture. And of course, we have Emily, Sarah, and Ethan. But one of the most profound moments and lines is said by Tom in this scene. Back when he was a priest, he would have to answer for those seeking help and forgiveness.
It's easy to talk about forgiveness when it's not your loss.
That hit me so hard because I think about when people say when you lose someone, you'll be okay, or I know how you feel. To me, this scene just solidifies why you cast someone as great as Mark Ruffalo in this role. Him mentioning how much he misses his wife and his son and how every morning he wakes up in disbelief to what happened to them. The look on his face just says it all. His prayers haven't been answered by God. He's completely lost. Just as all of our main characters are as well. Man, I'm telling y'all, I did not expect this scene to shock me as much as it did. Again, this was just heartbreaking. It was a huge reveal, and it was just such a well-written and well-acted scene. Now, back at Ronnie's, Maeve wakes up Sam to go with her to get him a present for finishing his book. Now, as they arrive to the toy store, as Maeve suggests he go inside to pick up his Batman toy he wanted, as she'll meet him inside. Now, we watch as Maeve goes back to her job and uses that lost and found cell phone to call 911 as she's using it to be anonymous. Now, before we get into one of the most tense scenes of this episode, we get a nice moment between Anthony and Lizzie as he shares with her his experience as a DJ back in the day to pay for college.
Routine.
Yeah.
What was the routine?
I can't remember, Stover. It was, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the St. Monica 7th and 8th grade mixer tour. Before we get started, a few rules.
Now, I could be wrong about Anthony, about being the inside man for the gang, but I do think he's a DJ, or used to be a DJ, and you think about nightclubs and how you can get mixed in with the wrong crowd of people, aka gang members. Now, again, I know he said that he DJ'd for high school parties, but again, I would imagine that he would find himself into nightclubs sometimes as well. Now, their moment is broken up by them getting a call about Sam's sighting. Now, talking about my theory of me thinking that Anthony is the mole. Now, again, I could be wrong, I could be right, but I think my gut's telling me the reason why I think I'm picking on him has nothing to do with the show or the character. A little bit to the show, obviously, but maybe because he does such a great job of playing Sir Criston Cole. If you all don't know, I do cover House of the Dragon on the show, and that is a character that I absolutely hate. So I would admit, maybe I'm a little bit biased towards Anthony because of the actor playing someone else that I hate from another show, who can't be trusted, by the way. Now, Maeve goes back to her car as the police arrive, and in her back seat, she finds Sam, who didn't feel safe to go in a store by himself alone because he got scared. Now, to me, this makes sense that he would return and was scared because you'll have to imagine that the kid's most likely dealing with abandonment with his whole parents leaving him at one point of his life. Man, I feel bad for little Sam, and I really hope that he makes it out of this situation alive, and maybe him and Maeve and her cousins will be okay by the end of the story. Now, Maeve has him climb into the trunk to hide. As she tries to leave, the police are checking the cars before they leave the plaza. Now, Tom arrives at the plaza as Robbie tries calling Maeve, but she doesn't answer. Man, I wish I would have had a live reaction during this scene because I was literally on the edge of my seat throughout this entire moment. As Maeve thinks quick on her feet and tells the officers that she's a manager at one of the stores, and she mentions that she saw a kid wandering around as Tom comes to her car to question her. He has her park her car and come inside to identify the kid that she mentioned. They have a lineup of kids for her to identify, all while Sam is still in her trunk. As we watch, Maeve picks a random kid as Tom calls it a bum call, a fake tip, and they go about their way. Now again, this whole scene was so intense. You follow that with the emotional scene about Ethan's reveal. With this tense scene, this episode was just so incredible to me. But I want to go back to Maeve and her coworker. I want to point out that her friend at work gave her a look that to me says that she knows that Maeve lied and she could confront her about this at some point. Now, we end this episode with Jason getting the information about Peach's body as he visits his fiance's house. As Kaylee dad answers the door and we're left to hearing screaming inside, and I'm to assume that they're both gonna either be badly hurt or they were killed. Again, this all falls back on Robbie. Now, yes, Peaches is a grown-ass man. He can make his own decisions. He didn't have to go with them. But I feel this speaks to Robbie being so persuasive and knowing how to use his kind demeanor to take advantage of people that trust him. Again, I feel like this show is doing a good job of making the viewer either feel bad or want to root or don't care for Robbie, but I think the performance and how Robbie is written, and honestly how all these characters and all these actors are acting so far, has been so well written with such depth, and we're only 2 episodes in. As we watch Tom call Sarah to check to see if Emily's home yet, he makes a U-turn because he knows exactly where she is. He finds his daughter at the same park her brother went to after running away from home after a bad experience with playing lacrosse. Now, Maeve returns home and gives one of the best and most devastating looks I've seen from someone in a long time in a television show, as she looks and has tears down her face and looks Robbie in the face and asks him what he's done to this family. Now look, I think I've said all I could about the scenes and breaking down the characters and how this episode was excellent. But if that wasn't enough, let me say it again. This episode was incredible. I watch a lot of TV, from Severance to The Pitt and so many other great TV shows this year and so many great episodes this year. But to me, this was one of the best episodes of television I've watched so far this year. And I can only imagine how much better and more intense the story's going to get as we move forward. So man, with all that being said, I have spoken a lot, but now it is your turn in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts about everything we discussed in this breakdown, from who do you think the rat is on both camps, the Dark Hearts and the FBI. What do you think about both reveals, about Billy and Ethan? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. Now, if you all have made it to this point of the breakdown, I really appreciate y'all. Let me know if you made it to this point by putting in the comments right now, #DJGrasso. Thank you all for watching or listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that like button, but also hit the hype button. There's a new feature on YouTube where you can hype up the video and it spreads it to new people. Speaking of, hit the share button. Share this with anyone and everyone you know that's interested and loves talking about this show. And please consider subscribing to the channel for more task breakdowns and so much more. Now, if you all are listening to this in podcast form, because again, I do have a podcast where you can find all your podcasts, I appreciate y'all. Please like and leave a review and subscribe to the podcast. You all are awesome. Stay safe, and I will see you all on the next breakdown of HBO's Task, Episode 3.